This time around we're taking a look at the Bajoran Interceptor 5 expansion. It's a neat little fighter. Got its strengths. It is kind of a little fragile. Definitely a cool swarm ship for some fun home games. Not sure how competitive it is itself, but it does come with some cool cards. So we'll get in and take a look. There we have our dial. Very maneuverable little ship. Has some white come about maneuvers in there. And pretty much everything you'd expect. Not very speedy though. 3 it tops out at. And there you see our Bajoran Interceptor. And again, you can see that maneuverability. Very maneuverable ship. Not even a red on the dial. And those 1 and 2 come about. The 1 white come about is an extremely useful maneuver. A very maneuverable little ship. Here we have our Interceptor 5. It's the named version. Bajoran faction. Unique. 2 attack. 3 agility, which is nice. 3 hull. 0 shield, which is why I was saying it was a little fragile. You have a tech slot, weapon slot, and a crew slot for 16 points. You get evasive maneuver, target lock, scan, and battle stations, which is really nice to see. And your special ability is you don't lose your perform action step or take damage when a planet or an obstacle overlaps your ship base. And you can re-roll your defense dice against minefields, which is really nice. Being a small, agile ship kind of gets that. Almost wish these had been similar to a fighter squadron. But you lose that ability on the generic ship, which kind of hurts. But you don't really lose anything else except the crew slot and the scan action, and they're the same points. Makes it a very viable swarm ship because the generic really doesn't have any stat difference than the named. For our captains, we have Hazhar. He's a captain skill of 7, which is very respectable. 4 points and an elite upgrade. If your ship's within range 1 of a planet token or an obstacle, all attacks made against your ship are at a -1. Now that's in addition to the -1 you get, say you're on the planet token. They're already getting a -1 for shooting through an obstacle, so they are going to add up, which is really neat. Next up we have Lanaris Holum. I can't remember how they pronounced it in the episode. He's also unique. Captain skill of 3, 2 points. Each time you're attacked, if you have a evasive token beside your ship, you may re-roll 1 of your defense dice. Some of these cards are really useful in combination with the ones from the other Bajoran ship that was an OP prize from the Dominion War Month 6. And we have our generic Bajoran captain. Our elite talent in this one's kind of useful. It has multiple uses even. It's militia. It's unique and costs 3 points. And it's kind of interesting in that at the start of the combat phase you can discard this. I'm not big on discard ones, but it's worth it, to get a battle station token beside your ship, even if it already has one. So it'll let you have 2 battle stations, so you can use it for offense and defense, which is nice. In addition, if this upgrade is on a Bajoran ship with a Bajoran captain, you also get +2 attack dice the first attack you make during the round which you use the upgrade. And it comes with one of our little reminder tokens. So +2, and even has the Bajoran faction because it has to be a Bajoran captain on a Bajoran ship. Yeah, double battle stations is useful on just about anything, including some of the Federation ships. I'd really like it on some Dominion ships even. But the extra +2 attack dice for being on a Bajoran ship is kind of fun for those of us who play Faction Pure. Being that Bajorans are so limited right now on what they have to use for Faction Pure, it's kind of nice to see something like that specifically for them. Crew-wise, we got some fun stuff here. Neela, who's unique, 5 points. As an action, you can target a ship at range 1 to 3 and roll 3 attack dice. If you get at least 1 critical result, you inflict a critical damage to the ship's hull. Doesn't specify that they have to have their shields down, so it's basically an auto crit if you get it. If you do manage to damage the ship, you discard her. If you don't, you just disable her, so you can try again later. Very nice. Very thematic for the Bajorans. The next one we have is Anara. 3 points. And you can, as an action, you can discard her to repair 1 damage to your hull. Also useful. Not big on discards, but in a pinch. With a ship that has 0 shield and 3 hull, I'm not sure how much use you're going to get out of Anara. But again, She's one that could be used on the Akarim, or whatever, however you pronounce that ship, the OP one from month 6 of the Dominion War. For our weapon upgrades, we have Phaser Strike. This one's kind of interesting. Has its uses. It's definitely a situational one. It's 4 points. Has an attack value of 3, range 1 to 3. As an action, during the combat phase, you can attack with this weapon as if you had a captain skill of 10. You have to disable the card to perform the attack. All your normal range bonuses apply. And it can only be purchased for a ship with a hull value of 3 or less, and costs 5 extra if it's not a Bajoran Interceptor. Comes with one of our neat reminder tokens. Phaser Strike only in your captain skill of 10. Basically, it's a you shoot first card. Costs you your action for the turn, so not sure with the 3 attack. Maybe if you get a target lock the previous turn and then use this. I could see it being used against slow-moving heavy targets. Jem'Hadar battleship, Borg with their 0 evade, things like that. Definitely worth it to get the first attack. If you had a swarm of these all firing at captain skill 10, I can see where, you know, that many dice may do something significant to one of those ships with a 0 defense, especially in combination with something else that were to knock out their shields. So definitely has its situational uses. It is a cool thing. Anything that lets you shoot first is always fun. For tech upgrades, we have our Warp Drive Refit. Kind of an interesting card. 2 points. And during the action phase, if you reveal a 3 forward, you can use a 4 forward instead. It can only be purchased for ships that do not have a 4 or higher on its maneuver dial. Situational, I can see it being used on some of the slower ships just to keep them up with the faster ships out there, so you don't fall behind. Not sure how much use this is going to get over some of the other things, but I can see places where it would be used. Now, the more interesting of the tech upgrades that comes with this ship is Maneuverability. And there's a whole wall of text here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but 5 points. And basically, if you choose a 90-degree left or right turn or a come-about maneuver, you can use the full about template instead, which is the exact same one that came with the Tholian Web participation prize. It has some other bonuses on here too. The main thing is it counts as a red maneuver, so it's going to give you an auxiliary power token, but it also grants you the ability that if you overlap a planet token while you're using it, or even when you're not using it, basically it gives your ship this ability that you can still perform your actions and attack without penalties, although if other people are attacking you, you get an extra +1 defense die because you're basically in the planet's atmosphere. Costs an extra 5 points for anything that's not the Bajoran Interceptor, but it's costly. But at 10 points instead of 5, you're looking at being able to give ships a come-about maneuver and not have it take the resource slot that the one that came with the Tholian Web did. So, has its uses. Really, you're looking at 11 points because it's going to be 5 for the card, 5 for the penalty, and +1 for cross faction. But still, if you have the extra points, I see it as being worth it. Everything else that comes with the expansion, as always, you have your critical hit and auxiliary power token. You got our 2 reminder tokens to go with the other cards. There's a disable in there. You have an evasive, a scan, and a battle stations token. We got target lock MM this time. And an interesting mission, I actually remember this episode of DS9. It's called the Blockade. And basically the Romulans had set up a medical facility on one of Bajor's moons, and turned out they were stockpiling weapons there. And the Bajorans blockaded the planet pretty much. And that's what you're going to be doing in this mission. You're going to blockade the planet, and you have to survive 10 rounds without the Romulans getting a certain amount of stuff either off or on the planet. I can't remember which way they go. But, so yeah, it's a blockade, hold the line type mission. They give you these 10 counters here to count down the turns so you can keep track of what's going on. And you have to hold the line for 10 turns. Ship itself is pretty good detail, decent paint job. It's extremely tiny. It's this military camo theme going. Like I said, I almost thought these would be better as a fighter squadron, but they work well as a standalone ship. Here we have our base for the Interceptor 5, only a forward firing arc. And then your generic Bajoran Interceptor. And that's the Bajoran Interceptor 5. Overall, it's a neat little ship. Comes with some interesting upgrades. The Bajoran faction really doesn't have a lot to choose from, but as support ships for Federation, they can be really useful. A lot of cool upgrades in there. And as a swarm ship in a friendly fun game, I can see them being really fun to play too. You get 4 or 5 of those and some upgrades on them and just go to town, especially against the Borg. Granted, they're going to be one-shot kills for the Borg, and the Borg may even be able to split their fire among them, so I'm not sure how that would play out in the end. But the phaser strike ability to shoot first, plus a swarm of ships with firing those 3 attacks. You have 5 ships firing 3 attacks, all going first. That's really going to hurt, especially if you can pull it off on a second turn or so where you already have a target lock, and they all get the reroll on top of that. So, it has its uses. I can see it being some interesting, and I can't wait to play a few games with it and see how it turns out.